Okay, so well, I got another project going on with Teddy Ruxpin, and while I'm up here, I will probably power it up, see if his animatronics will work, and I've doing some restoration of his teddy bear to make a complete set with included hacks and accessories to animate him with your smartphone and that sort of thing as like a package deal, and I'll make that available on my eBay. Anyway, I purchased this Apple II green phosphor monitor, and totally not the seller's fault, and I did buy this knowing that it was completely untested. However, and it certainly wasn't for him packing for it certainly wasn't because he didn't pack it well. He did. There was probably about 12 inches of bubble wrap completely encasing this thing. You couldn't have packed a better CRT, and you know how dangerous it is to ship CRTs and hope that they come intact. Well, however, before you say that I'm being too accusatory, I did in fact used to work at a FedEx shipping distribution center, and yeah, I know about the antics that go on in there and how they underpay temp workers, and you know, I wouldn't recommend FedEx to ship anything, much less anything delicate. However, while it could have definitely come back a lot worse, um, there does appear to be some damage that wasn't present in the seller's photos, and this is indeed the same monitor with the same serial number. And hopefully, this is just entirely superficial. As far as like the interior, naturally, we're gonna have to open this thing anyway to just clean out just to make sure it's clean, just do initial investigation. I do hear a little piece of what sounds like plastic rattling around the interior, and I have a suspicion because I noticed that this alignment seemed a little off. I mean, it's been a long time since I've seen one of these monitors in person. I don't remember this being quite as asymmetrical. Oh, and by the way, I believe that this damage is not a drop damage. From the looks of the box, this was packed in under an extraordinary amount of weight. And regardless of how much bubble wrap this thing was encased in, whatever, it wasn't enough to absorb the forces. And I think that's what's occurred here is that this thing may have been actually on its side with the weight of other shipping materials pushing the forces on its side, causing this bevel to protrude out. Anyhow, what I'm going to do, anyway, I suspect, just upon initial investigation, that piece of plastic might be coming from something off of this armature, which facilitates it moving up and down. It seems to be moving up and down as it's supposed to, but let me not rattle on any more about it and get it opened up and see what's going on. Okay, well, as I expected, that would be the source of the discrepancy there. And that seems about consistent with this having been compressed under too much weight in shipping. And I want to reiterate, I know for certain this was not the seller's fault. And going into this was untested. Generally, the risks from shipping through FedEx. I do, however, feel that because this damage was not present in the seller's photos, that FedEx should at least be liable for a partial refund of the shipping, at least. But beyond that, it actually looks surprisingly clean on the inside. Nothing like, and of course, these little cobwebs and stuff. And I figured I want to have this opened when this tube is probably discharged. And I'm a lazy ass, so I ain't fucking with that. We'll see if I regret. See if those are my famous last words. Anyhow, it's looking pretty clean. I don't think there's any swollen caps. There's little brown ones down there. Look a little bit. Well, I couldn't say what they look like when they was new. But thing is, I looked up some repair videos for these, and I don't see a whole lot of darn repair videos. It's beyond, I think, the 8-bit guys repairing the one that had been in a landfill for 20 years in the elements and got it working with just like replacing the resistor and generally just cleaning it up real good. That's unfortunate though. That is just a little bit unfortunate, but I'll see if there's anything I can feasibly do to epoxy it back or something. At least taking it apart wasn't too bad. I miss when Apple used to make their stuff repairable. Anyhow, I think when I put the case back together, it ought to, at least on the outside, come together a little better. And yeah, other than I'm just going to maybe go in here and pick out a few cobwebs, I think I'm just going to feel confident enough to give it a shot. So, it's not the end of the world, but it's kind of disappointing. And it's possible I might leave it alone and see if anyone happens to make or have a replacement component for that. That almost seems like it wants to snap back together, and if I push too hard, it certainly will. I certainly think it will. So, you know, this might sound goofy. I almost think if I run a bead of Elmer's glue right down there and maybe paint some on the other side, I might be able to budge that in, and the combination of glue and friction ought to work good enough. There's some tension right there. If that's the case, we all know this certainly could have turned out worth shipping. So let's let me see if I can do that before I snap it back together and fire it up. Alright, so what I've done is precisely what I said I'd do. Used a little bit of Elmer school glue. And I applied as much as I could to the seam where the break was. And then just kind of finagled it, snapped it back together, and I worked in this little piece of lens cardboard here and a little piece of Q-tip just to give it some mechanical reinforcement to hold it in place. And I suspect that little piece of plastic that I heard rattling around in the chassis came from right there. And yeah, you can even see a little bit of glue there dripping out, which is fine. Because, and this is one of the reasons that I like Elmer's glue over using something like super glue. And there's probably people screaming, why don't you just use super glue? Well, this stuff dries clear. And as long as you're not going to use it in a chronically moist environment, bet you love the way I just said moist. Anyhow, unless you keep it in a very, very moist environment, it tends to be pretty reliable adhesive. Most of the shit I've used super glue on tends to hold together. Elmer's glue on tends to hold together. And as far as especially plastics, I have not had a lot of luck with super glue. It's great for skin though if you got an abrasion or a cut. Liquid stitches. Beyond that, stuff's cheap and it dries clear. If I get a little bit of residue where I don't want the residue, it generally will peel off or wash off and stay where you want the adhesive, and also provide a little bit of lubrication for me to make that plastic slide past itself and realign. And now that I've had it apart and thought about it, I might just cut a piece of stripped cardboard and glue it and use it use it to mechanically reinforce the side of this brake a little bit, where appears to be open. I reckon if I stay on this side, that's where I suppose I'm going to mostly need it. I don't think it's compromised the other direction so much, as you can see, as I reinforced it for the glue to dry. And I think we just improve upon the temporary thing just to give it a little bit of, give me a little bit more peace of mind. Although I think the school glue ought to be sufficient, short of letting someone like a bull in a china closet use my Apple II. But as far as everything else, I wish I could find that little piece of plastic now. Of course I can't find it now that it's apart. And now that I've glued it together, it should have crossed my mind sooner, but it didn't. But the interior of this thing is so clean and pristine looking. If I didn't know any better, and I don't, I'd almost suggest it looks practically brand new old stock. And I don't see no necessarily swollen capacitor. It is, the man said it needed cleaning. Cleaning wise, I think it looks about damn near immaculate, as you can see. Ain't even there's nothing even caked or cooked on the electron gun back there. about the cleanest damn 40-year-old piece of electronic I've ever opened in my entire life. So to the seller, I am impressed and very, very appreciative. And at FedEx, I just wanted to let you know the way your whole damned operation is structured. Y'all are something I probably shouldn't say on YouTube. So yeah, I suppose there's really nothing I could do till I reasonably think that's dried enough for me to attempt anything else. Then again, I almost think that before it dries, I might as well get a piece of cardboard in there. I don't know. Let me get back to you. Man, you can have a look at this fucking monstrosity that it took me to feel at least halfway confident it might temporarily hold, maybe. Yeah, I got about as much confidence in this as I do letting my dog wash my dinner. So, anyhow, really nothing left for me to do other than let it dry, wait. It's not like I'm fixing this up for sale or trying to pull a fast one on nobody. This monitor is intended for my personal use. I recently got an Apple II computer that I've wanted since I was like 5 years old. And it too was untested. Luck of the draw. And got lucky with that. Coming shipped well, and yeah, just a little cleaning and it fired right up. And probably gonna need a power supply replacement soon. Probably. Isn't that just about everything like this? Yeah. Unfortunately, they make a drop-in replacement, so that's no biggie. And some of us like to play with fire till we get burned. Speaking of which, way I figure it is, if there's not enough heat to melt this plastic, probably not enough heat to burn the cardboard neither. There's no glue on the CRT side of this as yet. Mostly just a lot of cardboard put in there for mechanical bracing, and the glues everywhere. Because as I was trying to get this thing to glue, yeah, it fell off. Another piece of plastic snapped off. You know, it's one of those situations where a minor problem turns into a cluster. And, well, anyway, I think that I'll just have to do. I'll have to live with it unless somebody knows where I can get a whole new plastic swivel bezel. I reckon I'm at an impasse as far as fixing this correctly. Anybody's got any better suggestions? I'm open to ears. I don't want to pretend that I know everything in the world. Y'all know what old brittle plastic's like. You can even see just from pulling this apart. Just these little pieces right there. However, I'm not blaming this on the brittle plastic, and I'm certainly not blaming this on the seller entirely. What I mean is, I'm certainly not blaming the seller. I'm partially blaming FedEx though, because I do not reckon that it left the cellars in this condition. Anyway, hopefully at least the lid goes back together without breaking any more plastic. Fun times. But my battery's about to die. Bye! So anyway, as you can see, it's otherwise working beautifully. And as far as like this bevel hinge support, I don't think I'm ever going to be able to rely on it without putting a little bit of cardboard support underneath of it like I have. It's mostly just so it would dry, but I think if I have to make an adjustment, I will just pull that out a little bit and just keep that parked under there for a little peace of mind. But anyway, yeah, as probably I don't know how well the camera will focus on this. But yeah, as foreshadowed with as clean as it was on the inside, it otherwise works beautifully. And I want to thank the seller because, yeah, I'm really pleased with this monitor. Besides FedEx messing up what would be an otherwise perfect monitor. Anyhow, that'll conclude this video, and if you like my content, like it, subscribe, and stay tuned because I'll post an update on what's going on with Teddy Ruxpin very shortly after this video. And that will conclude everything I have to say about this for right now.